Sometimes, looking back is the only way to move forward. And for Ghana, the past held more than memories. It held lessons, big ones that could finally unlock the kind of progress the country had been chasing for decades. So here's the surprise. Ghana just pulled in nearly $3 billion in only 4 months. And no, they didn't stumble across a new mountain of gold. The mines didn't multiply. The earth didn't magically cough up more treasure. The truth? Something or someone flipped the script. Let's rewind. Ghana's been one of Africa's top gold producers for years. Alongside South Africa and Sudan, they formed what many called Africa's Golden Triangle. The country has always had the goods. Tons of gold, literally. But somehow, that wealth never quite made it home. The issue wasn't underground. It was above it, in boardrooms and contracts and fine print. See, the people digging up Ghana's gold weren't Ghanaians. The companies came from everywhere but Ghana. Canada, Australia, South Africa, the UK. They came in, scooped out the gold, processed it somewhere else, sold it for billions, and left Ghana with crumbs. Not only was Ghana missing out on profit, it was also missing out on the truth. The numbers, the deals, the taxes, all that was fuzzy at best. Loopholes were jumped through. Some companies underreported. Others dodged taxes legally through clever paperwork. Meanwhile, the country that owned the gold stayed broke, jobless, and constantly begging foreign investors to stay. The people kept asking, how are we rich in gold but poor in life? And for years, the answer was just a shrug. No one really pushed back until now. Because in early 2025, something weird happened. The silence was broken, not with speeches or strikes, but with receipts. Suddenly, between January and April, Ghana's gold earnings didn't just rise. They exploded. Nearly $2.7 billion came in, triple what was made during the same time just 2 years earlier, and the actual gold being exported. It shot up from about 7,500 kilograms to over 30,000 in just 4 months. Was there a miracle mine discovered? Did production go into overdrive? Nope. The gold was always there. The difference, this time, it didn't disappear. For the first time, Ghana controlled the flow, not the companies, not the middlemen. Ghana was no longer just handing over the goods and hoping for leftovers. A new system was in place. One that didn't come from a Western advisor, a fancy economist, or a big international bank. This idea, this new way of doing things, came from somewhere most people weren't looking. Burkina Faso. And at the center of it all, a man in army fatigues, not a suit. Not a CEO, but a captain. Captain Ibrahim Traoré. Ghana didn't come up with this bold, new playbook. But once they saw it working elsewhere, they didn't waste time debating it. They ran with it. And when they did, gold stopped being just something they shipped out. It became something bigger, a tool for power. But here's the twist. The strategy Ghana followed wasn't born in its halls of parliament or drawn up by top economists. It started miles away, in a country few expected to lead such a revolution, Burkina Faso. And at the center of it all, a young soldier with zero background in finance. So how did a captain in army green end up influencing policies in a democratic country led by a civilian president? Let's break it down. Captain Ibrahim Traoré took over leadership in Burkina Faso in 2022. At first, people didn't take him seriously. He was young, had no economic training, no global allies cheering him on, just a military jacket and a bold vision. But what he did next stopped everyone in their tracks. Instead of selling off state assets or asking for help from international banks, Traoré flipped the script. He looked at his country's gold, one of its biggest resources, and said, "We're not giving it away anymore. No more exporting raw gold. No more letting foreign companies call the shots." He built a refinery right there in Burkina Faso, and then he made it clear not a single ounce leaves unless it helps our people first. That move sent shockwaves through the usual power centers, from Paris to Washington. But in Ghana, it lit a spark. At first, there were just whispers, low-key talks among lawmakers, think tanks quietly studying Burkina Faso's data, some backroom debates in Accra. Could this actually work in a place like Ghana, with all its international connections and trade dependencies? Then came the turning point. John Dramani Mahama, Ghana's former president, made a comeback in early 2025, and everyone expected the usual. More diplomacy, more deals, more business as usual. But that's not what happened. This time, Mahama came in quietly. No big promises, no flashy headlines, just focused action. And if you looked closely, the signs were there. He wasn't dusting off old policies. He was building something new. And the blueprint he was following? It wasn't from Harvard. It wasn't from the IMF. It was from Burkina Faso. Now here's the question that made the rounds. Why would a democratic civilian leader borrow tactics from a military-led country? Simple, because it worked. Traoré didn't just talk about change, he delivered. Under his leadership, Burkina Faso grew its gold reserves, boosted its currency, and even started standing on its own feet without needing constant foreign help. While global analysts labeled it risky, African leaders saw something else. Proof of concept. Mahama didn't need to wear camouflage to adopt the plan. He had something even more powerful, a stable system ready to scale it fast. So he got to work, quietly, strategically, purposefully. If you are still watching this video, it means this content interests you. You should consider liking and subscribing to our channel so you don't miss any future uploads. Let's continue now. The first ripple in Ghana's gold revolution didn't come with fireworks, it came with paperwork. A brand new agency was quietly formed, the Ghana Gold Board. At first glance, it looked like just another government office. But under the surface, it was something else entirely. This wasn't about more red tape, it was about power. And if it felt familiar, that's because it was. The whole setup was inspired by Burkina Faso's gold reforms. From the structure to the mission, Ghana was borrowing a page straight from Traoré's playbook, with its own twist. But Mahama wasn't just copying Traoré's system. He was adopting the mindset behind it. Gold isn't just a shiny metal, it's leverage, it's influence, it's freedom. And if Africa didn't control its gold, it would never truly control its future. Previous governments tried negotiating better deals with international mining giants. Mahama? He didn't negotiate, he declared. If you want Ghana's gold, you follow Ghana's rules. No exceptions. This wasn't just about better profit margins, it was a shift in philosophy. Gone were the days of chasing foreign investors with promises of tax breaks and cheap labor. Ghana was no longer offering its wealth to the highest bidder. It was claiming it, defending it, and building a system that worked for Ghanaians first. Now, here's where it gets smart. Unlike Burkina Faso, Ghana couldn't just slam the brakes overnight. It's a financial hotspot, a democracy with long-standing relationships in the global market. A sudden pivot could cause chaos. So Mahama didn't launch a rebellion. He rolled out a quiet revolution. It started slow, almost unnoticed, but within weeks, policies that once seemed impossible were suddenly law. Foreign traders found themselves blocked out unless they followed new rules. Big mining companies had to give up a portion of their gold output, not later, but up front. And every ounce of gold headed out of the country had to be approved and tracked by the Ghana Gold Board. That's when it became clear. This wasn't a trial run. This was real. And what made it possible? Confidence. Not from a contract, but from a living example. Traoré didn't hand Ghana a roadmap. He handed it permission to try something bold. And Mahama took that spark and lit a fire under the gold sector. Soon, Ghana wasn't just protecting its gold, it was profiting from it. And with that profit came power. The kind that makes even world powers pay attention. But here's where things really flipped. Now that Ghana controlled the gold, the big question wasn't how do we stop losing it? It was what do we do with it now that it's ours? That's when the reforms went from vision to execution. Fast. And Mahama didn't hold back. One of the first big shocks. The 20% Doré bar rule. Every mining company, no matter where they came from, had to hand over 20% of their refined gold to the gold board. Not cash, physical bars. Why? Because Doré bars don't lie. Raw gold can be tampered with, mixed, hidden, underreported. But Doré bars, they're semi-pure, easily traceable and hard to fake. They're like gold with a fingerprint. And now Ghana had the receipts. The moment Ghana tightened its grip on gold, the shockwaves were instant. Foreign companies, used to doing things their way, quietly shipping gold out under vague contracts and minimal oversight, suddenly found the doors closing. Now they had to show their work. Every ounce had to be declared, checked and traced, and they didn't like it. Some companies threw tantrums, threatening to pack up and leave. Others tried to play nice, lobbying behind the scenes, hoping to loosen the grip. But Ghana didn't budge. With gold prices climbing worldwide and public frustration boiling over, Mahama's government stood its ground. And guess what? The bluff got called, and fast. Just 3 months into the new policy, Ghana's central bank reported something that had the financial world doing a double take. Gold reserves had jumped from under 9 metric tons to over 30. Not some digital balance, not theoretical value, actual gold locked in vaults, real bars, real weight, real power. And with that came something Ghana hadn't had in a long time: monetary independence. For decades, Ghana, like most African countries, relied on stacks of US dollars to keep its economy steady and pay for imports. But dollars come with baggage. IMF rules, political conditions, and sudden market swings that hit hard. Gold answers to no one. Now sitting on a pile of globally respected metal, Ghana started playing a new kind of game. And this time, they set the rules. International lenders, once used to barking orders, had to sit down and talk. Investors who previously demanded special treatment had to compete like everyone else. And Ghana's own central bank? It started flexing its muscle, confidently managing the CDI with the strength of its golden backup. But this wasn't just a financial win, it was a strategic power play. With a vault full of leverage, Ghana began exploring trade deals that didn't involve the US dollar at all. Word got around that deals were being discussed with Asian and Middle Eastern partners. Refined gold in exchange for energy, tech, even infrastructure. No Western banks, no foreign currency dependency. Just value for value swaps. Gold as the deal maker. But none of this would work without one firm, unbreakable rule. Ghana's gold doesn't move unless Ghana wins. The Mahama government made another bold move. It froze out nearly all foreign gold traders. In the past, international firms, especially from places like the United Arab Emirates and Switzerland, roamed freely through Ghana's markets, scooping up gold at bargain prices with little accountability. Now, only a short list of state-approved traders could participate, and even they had to play by strict rules: full transparency, proper taxes, proof of reinvestment in the local economy. Critics said it would scare off business. But the opposite happened. With clearer rules and stronger protections, a wave of local Ghanaian businesses finally got their shot. No more being pushed to the sidelines by foreign giants. Homegrown entrepreneurs and mid-sized companies began building their own refining centres, gold trading hubs and shipping networks. They didn't need foreign approval anymore. The gates were wide open for them and firmly shut for anyone trying to exploit the system. At the same time, Ghana was locking down its gold reserves. It was opening doors for its people. The Mahama administration didn't just want to hoard gold, they wanted to build with it. So while foreign traders were being shown the door, young Ghanaians were being invited in. The government ramped up funding for technical training, helping everyday citizens gain skills in mining, metallurgy, and mineral finance. And just like that, the gold industry stopped being something that happened far away in the hills. It became a source of jobs, careers, and opportunity in cities and towns. But this wasn't about digging more holes. This was about building value chains, the businesses around the gold, refining, transport, analysis, security, investment. Gold was no longer just a shiny export. Now, it was creating industries, and not just headlines. And while all of this felt revolutionary, it was also a natural next step in the story Ghana had started months earlier. First came admiration. Traoré lit the spark. Then came imitation, the laws, the systems, the controls. But here's where Ghana went beyond. They didn't just stop the bleeding. They started growing new organs. Gold became more than just metal. It became leverage. It was a lever to move policies, a shield to guard independence, and a sword to cut through dependency. Ghana, once at the mercy of foreign markets, now stood tall, not just richer, but stronger. But the most powerful part of this transformation wasn't even what happened inside Ghana. It was what happened outside, because Africa was watching. From Mali to Malawi, from Nairobi to Niamey, leaders started whispering the same question in embassies, think tanks, and cabinet meetings. If Ghana can do this, why can't we? This wasn't about jealousy, it was about awakening. Ghana had quietly exposed the weakness of the old model. Dig, export, hope. And more importantly, it had proven that it didn't take a miracle to change that. All it took was courage. And suddenly the continent started shifting. In Mali, where political turmoil had already strained ties with the West, mining officials began openly questioning why 60% of their gold was vanishing, smuggled, siphoned, or sold under shady terms. With Ghana as proof, they started drafting plans for their own gold board. In Niger, fresh from cutting ties with France, the message landed hard: no aid will save you, but reserves might. So the focus turned inward, towards self-reliance and controlling natural wealth. Even outside the West African crisis zone, change was brewing. In Tanzania, where foreign mining companies had long dominated the gold trade, the government began re-examining old laws, especially the ones they'd been pressured to scrap. Talks about reintroducing mandatory value addition policies, shelved under foreign investor pressure, returned to the table. But the real surprise came from Zimbabwe. For years, Zimbabwe had been haunted by its reputation: corruption, mismanagement, sanctions. Yet in 2025, something shifted. A senior economic advisor to the president publicly praised Ghana's model, calling it a pan-African answer to colonial economics. That wasn't a compliment, that was a signal. Ghana's blueprint had gone viral, not because it was complex, but because it was simple. No coups required, no revolutions, just one radical idea: put national interest first, say no to exploitation, say yes to self-determination. That shift in mindset, from appeasement to assertion, was now spreading. And Ghana wasn't just inspiring change from the sidelines, they were leading it. Quiet meetings, trade summits, regional forums. The Ghana Gold Board began actively sharing knowledge, showing other African nations how to build tracking systems, regulate exports, and refine gold on their own terms. For the first time in a long time, something new was taking shape in Africa, a form of cooperation that didn't revolve around Brussels, London, or Washington. No loan agreements, no development aid, no foreign consultants in tailored suits handing down blueprints for growth. Instead, this new model was rooted in something real. Raw resources, refined at home, traded on African terms, and that made a lot of people nervous. Suddenly, international mining lobbies were publishing concerned reports about rising resource nationalism. African countries were keeping more of their own wealth. Western think tanks started pushing out articles warning of a return to authoritarian economics, thinly disguised jabs at places like Ghana and Burkina Faso. Meanwhile, business news outlets wondered aloud if this shift would scare away foreign investment. But they missed the point completely. This wasn't about pushing investors away. It was about reshaping the deal. African nations weren't closing the door on partnership. They were just refusing to be walked over. Ghana had made that clear, not by retreating from the world, but by standing firm with clear rules, strong institutions, and actual control over its most valuable asset. And that, right there, was the quiet revolution. But perhaps the most powerful impact of Ghana's gold policy wasn't financial or legal, it was mental. All across the continent, the way people talked about gold began to change. Young people, entrepreneurs, and students stopped seeing gold as some elite topic buried in government paperwork. Instead, they began to understand it as a tool for empowerment. Wealth, they realized, didn't have to be something that arrived from overseas with a bow on top. It could be built here, guarded here, and used here. Traoré started the spark. Ghana turned it into a flame. And now? The rest of the continent was beginning to feel the heat, because once a country breaks free, and not only survives but thrives, others start to believe they can too. Ghana's $3 billion wasn't just a headline. It was a message, loud and clear. The era of silent extraction is over. The age of African resource power, it's just getting started. Do you think it's too late to stop Africa from rising? Have both the youth and the leaders finally decided to take back what's theirs? Want more stories like this, the ones nobody talks about? Then don't forget to subscribe, hit that bell icon, and join us as we uncover the truths that are changing Africa's future.